Hello and welcome to an installment of the FIT Soul Club Oral History Project, a program at Fashion Institute of Technology, one of 64 State University of New York campuses. This project is generously funded by FIT President Joyce F. Brown through her Diversity Grant Program Initiative. I'm Tor Orange. I'm the Director of the Office of Educational Opportunity Programs. The Soul Club of FIT was created and organized by Clara Branch, a member of the FIT community, following the death of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The resulting interview will be made available via the FIT Library's website platform, Archive on Demand. The digital file and its transcription will become part of the official college archives. The library's unit of special collections and college archives administers the FIT oral history programs. So we are coming to you today from the FIT campus on West 27th Street in Manhattan, New York City, USA. And it is January 18th and the time is 11:20. We have the honor and privilege to be joined today by Sherry Hobson.
Yes.
One of FIT's Grand Dame alum.
Yes, ma'am.
Fashion Industries High School alumna.
Yes.
and designer extraordinaire.
Yeah,
So Sherry, thank you.
Thank you. This is such an honor. I'm sitting here and having all this retrospective running through my brain, retrospective of my life. I remember the day I left my interview for FIT, and I was walking down 7th Avenue. I was 17, and some crazy man started coming at me from, I don't know where he came from. And I was like, Mister, excuse me. And next thing I know, portfolio, garments, everything, I was laying on the sidewalk. And my classmate from high school kept on walking, left me laying in the street. And
what happened? They bumped you?
This man, he was obviously insane.
Okay.
So once I said to him, excuse me, mister, then he targeted all his energy at me. And thank God, I mean, my what do you call it? My carry case, my portfolio was so big, and then all these garments I had, that all of that cushioned my fall. I was 17, so I jumped right back up and ran into the first what do you call it, like coffee shop that was closing up for the day. So that was my first
trial by fire to
yes,
FIT.
Yes.
that fall and that ability to get right back up.
That's right.
Prepared you.
That's right. That's evidence, or that's what do you call it? That's exactly how the industry is.
Let me. I want to sort of ask you a question a little bit away from our scripted questions.
Okay.
I have a quote here. It says, "Behind every strong person is a story that gave them no choice."
Wow.
Behind every strong person is a story that gave them no choice.
Wow. You know, my mother was my hero, and my mother was also a fashion designer. She worked in evening dresses. She put on fashion shows with a group of friends. They called themselves Les Filles Charmantes, charming young ladies. I can't, oh my Lord, I'm having a senior moment. Audrey Smalls used to commentate my mother's fashion shows before she became the illustrious commentator for Ebony Fashion Fair. And I was a little girl in my mother's fashion shows. And I was a little seamstress at night with my mother doing hand stitching, sewing on buttons, whatever she needed me to do. I was her soldier at arm. And by 8 years old, I could reach the pedal of the power machine, and I started making my own clothes. My mother was very proud that I was able. I was proud of it too, but I really, anything that would
Please.
please my mom,
Yes,
I
of
was
course,
right there
of
to do
course.
that. I could match plaids. She would look at what Sherry made, and she was so proud of me, and I'm very proud of her as well because she worked in the industry back in the days when um, maybe she could make $200 a week. She was raising two little girls by herself, and it really wasn't enough money. So she left the fashion industry and started teaching home economics back in the day when
That
there
was
was still
important.
home economics in
Yes.
school. And, she still continued to sew on her own, sew for different people. She had different customers, clients. She had a dress shop on Nostrand Avenue in Brooklyn. She continued to teach during the day, go to school at night so she could have the degrees to keep that job. And she was active in, well, at that time when we were very young, she wasn't active in the church. But what I will say is we always had food on the table. Oh, I'm going to cry. We always had food on the table. The lights were always on. My mother, she might have come home late, but she always came home. Our home was safe. She didn't consciously make us want for anything, Um, maybe I would have liked a little more self-confidence, but my mother felt that I was the stronger child, so she poured a lot of her energy into my sister.
Sure.
And because she poured so much energy into my sister doesn't know no. Whereas I kind of felt a little second, So it was good. It was great even that my fashion could speak yes for me. I may have known in some areas no or felt second, but my fashion was always first class, winning, and very dear and very special to me.
I was going to ask you, to the extent that you ended up attending Fashion Industries High School, what did that mean for your mom? In terms of sort of carrying on a legacy of that skill.
My mom felt like it was the place that I needed to be. But in all actuality, what I learned in the high school, my mother had already pretty much taught me. So if it weren't for that, I did not submit my application to John Dewey in time. I would have gone to Dewey. I would have still done fashion, but I just would have had an exploratory high school experience. Whereas fashion industries, yeah. And then when I came to FIT, I got skipped in junior high school. So my sister we were a year apart in terms of entering college. And my mom helped my sister go to school outside of New York. So mommy said, well, I can't afford for both of you to be out of state. So you're going to have to stay here. And it was a gift to be here at FIT. I had work study. I got some money from, I think it was called TAP.
Tuition assistance program.
And I was in the first graduation class of the 4-year program here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
that first baccalaureate program.
Yes. When I graduated, I didn't owe anybody anything. Between the work study and the TAP, my education was paid for.
Most people, even today, think of FIT as a private institution. and rarely see it as a public institution, established a community college,
Mm-hmm.
established in the garment district. Um, and so when people learn that it's public, part of SUNY,
Mm-hmm.
and that it began offering initially only 2-year associate
That's
degree
right.
programs
Mm-hmm.
and evolved into offering the 4-year baccalaureate programs.
Mm-hmm.
So you were in the first class,
That's right.
fashion design?
Fashion design.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I was a tailoring major
Mhm.
the year I graduated, and what did I have? I had tailoring, and I guess well, I can't remember what they called it, but like that
Packaging?
studio
Okay.
tailoring, and I don't know. It was like I don't want to say costume design, but I want to say custom or design studio, maybe it was
Okay.
called. And I graduated in 1980, so it's a minute ago. It was a minute ago. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
It must blow your mind to now learn that FIT offers a master's
Oh,
in fashion design.
yeah.
I think the inaugural program was back in 2020, so it's only
Oh, okay. Because
3 years old.
I didn't know, and I often thought, well, to get my master's, what would I, what would I get it in? But that's interesting.
What was the FIT experience for you? So we're talking late 70s,
Yes,
yeah, early 80 or
right.
80.
I graduated from high school in the bicentennial year, so in 76.
Mm.
Bicentennial was a gift because I never forget when I graduated from high school, because it was the bicentennial year, which was a famous time. And I would say it was a time of discovering, if you will, a lot of other Black designers who were serious about fashion and serious about being in our industry, good, bad, or indifferent. We were all here together. I don't think, or I know I wasn't ready to graduate after my 2 years. Like, I wanted more. I felt like I didn't learn enough. And then I also thought, well, if I stay here and get my bachelor's, that gives me more credibility so that I could teach. And it would open more doors for me. What else would I say about my experience here? I would say it built my muscles to know that I was in the right place with the right people, doing the right thing at the right time in my life. And it was a safe place.
When you talk about the sense of fulfillment of being in a space with other young, talented Black designers, why was that important to you?
So, I grew up during a time, like you said in your introduction, Martin Luther King was murdered, Malcolm X, and I felt as though there was still a lot of unrest, and fashion and beautiful things and having talent, people couldn't really take that away from you. Either you're talented or you're not. It felt it enhanced my pride in my work and we validated one another.
Mm.
And there were some of us who were more daring than others. So it even inspired me to see the level of excellence and creativity of some of my counterparts, you know, and so I felt like I was in my tribe, so to speak. Yeah, yeah.
So this project, which I must say is probably one of the loveliest projects to be a part of, the idea of archiving the contributions of design at students of African descent and of recognizing Clara Branch. Speak a little about what it meant to be part of the Soul Club, if you were a member.
I was.
And the Soul Club fashion shows.
So I had two buddies, and we were inseparable in college. One's name was Linda Faison, and the other one was Bridget Brown, and our initials were BLS, Bridget Linda Sherry. So we had we did the shows together, and that was fun to work together but separately. And BLS, to hear BLS was just
but for the viewers,
it's a radio station,
right? Put in context what
right.
BLS, because in our generation BLS was everything.
So it was a R&B.
It still is, I think.
Yes. Yeah. WBLS is still on the air, and so it was just like one of the main radio stations popular in our community. So for us to adopt the acronym was a gift from God. The other part of it was Clara Branch was a no nonsense personality. You know, she was sweet as pie, and when you were struggling to get your pieces finished and done, she was like, "Come here, baby. Let me give you a hug." She'd give you a hug, but then she was like, "Get your crap done. Hurry up.
Make sure there's no strings.
Stop procrastinating. Press your garments. Be here on time." And she was a loving entity of, and sort of symbolically Big Mama. When I say she said, "Come give me a hug," I still remember putting my head on her chest. She was there to support us, encourage us, beat us if necessary. She didn't physically beat us.
I know, dude.
But come on, you know.
Let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen. You know, and she would not settle for stuff that wasn't up to par. You know, not that we presented her with work that was not up to par, not with my background. And my counterparts were also very talented. But she also, if something wasn't right, she would say, "Look, take that down. This is what you need to do, and, you know, get it together and talk to this person, that person, let them help you think this through." You know, she didn't just throw you out. Whereas I find that was one of the elements that one of the fears you would have being a part of the fashion industry. You know, you're only as good as your last collection. And she was not cutthroat and snobbish in that way. She was inclusive, and she allowed even those who didn't shine as bright as another person to get their moment of shine, you know, and to be included. And I think that was important. You know, I think it was important that we got to work with models that were here, also students with us, also Black, and they were able to work the runway and work your garments, and they would say, you know, this needs to be a little longer, or maybe this should be a little shorter, and you got that kind of helping eye and assistance. Like we all worked together. It wasn't I'm gonna make sure my stuff is better than your stuff. Like
Right.
we were family.
Right. Pulling one another.
Yeah, we pull exactly, and that was a great experience.
So, as Sherry, as you're speaking, I'm thinking about how not all, certainly not all, but many young people almost resent the context of struggle. They feel like, why do we always have to go back to that as the default? Why do we always have to hear about how hard things were and blah, 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 blah? They want to start from now and they want to move forward. Why do you think it's important that they understand that some of what they see now in terms of success, visibility of designers of color, did not always exist?
Exactly.
Say a little bit about why it's important that they understand that what they see now was not always all that there was, that it was in fact struggle and preparation and support that laid the groundwork for them to be able to come in and do their thing.
So it's interesting how you laid out that question, because I think of my flowers at home. If you don't tend to the roots, if you let the roots of the plant sit in water, they rotten. If you don't tend to the roots, maybe there'll be bugs in it or fungus. I think it's important to know on whose shoulders you stand and where you come from, and the knowledge that it took and the knowledge that it takes to make yourself better, stronger, technically better, creatively interesting, where you're really serving the masses, if you will, or at least serving those who can appreciate your art and your work. And I think knowing that so many little people have had a hand in creating this industry as we know it today, or as they may know it today. Because again, it's different. You know, it has evolved, and it's always evolving. I would think part of what the industry has done or has allowed, there are a lot of celebrities who didn't study fashion at all,
but lend their name as designers.
Yes. And that has its place, but you still have to know from where the industry has come, and what you need to develop, and the skills that it takes in order to develop a good collection, to maintain your reputation, to know quality, to deliver quality, to know fabrics. It's more to it than the shirt that you see there, or the shirt that I have that I'm wearing now. Today I went to a shop called Steinhoff and Stoller, and right now the young man that is running it is the son of the original person who owned it. And I spoke to him. I said, "Were you your dad's only child?" He said, "No, I have another brother, younger brother, and an older sister." I said, "So how'd you come
To be the
to
one.
be the one. He said, because I'm the only one that wanted to keep the business going. And I talked to him a little bit about, well, it's important for you to train others and
Yes.
prepare and to read, self-develop so that you can be able to see your business thrive and you don't have to be the one carrying, the torch all the time. He said, oh, well, it's hard. I said, but do your best to, figure out how you can have it, but not have to be the only reason it still
yes.
exists. And I said to him, I love you and I'm grateful
Mm,
that you are here. So I was able to get my, what did I buy? Velcro, and I got eyelets put in a cape that I'm making. And I got some other things that when I walked through the door, I knew I could get. And I think in developing your collection, you have to know where your findings are coming from and how to develop your pattern and how to combine your fabrics and make it all work. It's not instant food. So, I think it's important to know where all of that is coming from.
mhm, mhm. Well, actually, not that long ago, right, but before the pandemic, do you know Leonard Davis?
Yes.
Do you know? So Leonard and I collaborated on a Black History Month project.
I think it was in the lobby of the.
We put it on the fourth floor,
Oh, okay.
and and of course I can't recall the full title, but the opening title was Threads of Bondage, with a play on, of course, threads. And it was a tribute to young girls, adolescents, young women of color during the bondage period, during the enslavement period,
Okay.
who made gowns by hand, who made
Yeah.
the gowns of plantation owners, of their wives friends,
Wow.
all by hand, and they would be quote unquote loaned out to different plantations to do this work. The bottom line is that we thought it was important to let a campus, Black and white and all others,
Right.
to know that there is a legacy and a history that predates industry,
Mm-hmm.
and that particularly when it comes to women of color, that the origins of that come from continental Africa, working with lace, working with certain materials,
Mm-hmm.
transferred to this experience, North America, Caribbean, and paying tribute in our own way that they contributed to industry.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe there's such a thing as American couture, and that they were the architects of that without ever knowing it,
Without
without
knowing it.
ever being recognized for it, to be able to manage. One can also imagine what it must have been like to know that if you didn't do a good job, that your well-being could very well be at risk.
Mm.
That your very well-being could be
Mm-hmm.
at risk if a plantation owner's wife didn't like or didn't fit the way she wanted. And to be doing it by hand in some old archaic little sewing machine.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to be said about those of you who are part of that legacy. Young people now think that all things begin where they begin. No,
Always.
that there's part of a legacy. And as you
Mhm.
said, standing on the shoulders of those before,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
I think that well-being energy carried through to I worked on 7th Avenue for different houses, and if you did not produce garments that checked and that sold, your well-being was at risk there too. So that did
But
not change.
financially,
Yeah.
financially,
Yeah,
as
that's true.
opposed to physical well-being.
That's true. That's true too. That's true too.
Whole nother reality.
That is true too.
Um,
Absolutely.
but to your point, certainly the issue of well-being is ever present.
Mm-hmm.
Is ever present.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of it all, what would you say FIT brought to your experience, to your development as a designer? Especially since you did a 4-year program, you intentionally chose to invest in another 2 years.
Yeah, like I said, I was not ready to go out in the world. I think I didn't really have to. I was living at home and working here in the city. I would say I'm thinking about my garments that were on display in the lobby of the C building. I'm thinking about all the beautiful fabrics and relationships that I had with the mentors. I'm thinking about working in Dean Rittenberg's office and having Lillian Bartok as my immediate supervisor. I'm thinking about, what was that other lady's name? Oh, I can only see her face right now. But she would get those jobs that we would dress fashion shows. So I dressed at a Perry Ellis fashion show and Calvin Klein and Jeffrey Banks. Those glimpses and opportunities, that was so much fun. I mean, it just gave you like, oh, this is going to be my collection one day, or I could do this. And being amongst such creativity, I'm trying to think of, I can't think of his name right now. One of my other, he was one of our critics for my design class. Arthur, I don't know if it was Arthur McGee, but we worked with such beautiful fabrics, and I learned how to work in leather. And after graduation, I in 85, I went to live in Europe and ended up working in a leather and fur house. So FIT gave me a glimpse as to different things I could do. And for me, that was, even when the resource office had those sample sales and you could buy the remnants that different design houses had, and that was a drug for me.
Say a little bit about that. I know some others that we've interviewed have talked about it was a lifeline to have that resource. And Clara Branch managed that as well.
Yes.
What was
she
it?
was a part of that. I'm trying to, but it was I think it was the resource office where you could get just fabrications that you wouldn't have been able to touch price-wise otherwise. And they would add something either to your personal wardrobe or something that you featured in a show. And this was, it was like having
available campus-wide, or was this something available to students of color through Clara Branch?
Wow, that's interesting. So some of the sample sales were campus-wide, because I remember the resource office, the design houses would, donate it to the resource office. And I think because Clara was part of the staff, she could go and hand pick certain things
I
and
gotcha.
say, I want this, or, we need that, or, but I remember it being like, my very first job was in a fabric store. I used to go fabric shopping with my mom. So at 13, my first job was in a fab. I think half my pay stayed in the daggone store because I put this away and put that away. Yeah, so having great fabrics to work with is like everything. It's just everything. Even now, I have some fabrics I've had. I mean, in my wisdom, I'm learning to use them or lose them.
Mm-hmm.
Use them or give it away.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm doing a collection of capes, and I'm using fabrics that I already own. Some of the fabrics are, for me, priceless, but it really makes my soul feel good to see them made into something, and so it's fun. Whether it's a pillow on my couch or new cushions in my dining room.
You have them come alive,
yes,
as opposed to just sitting there.
But fabric is everything. That like even when I was in Steinloff and Stoller earlier, I was like, okay, I came in here to do two things. I have to put those blinders on. Yes, because then I'm going home with that dye and those buttons and this snap and, just other things that were not on my list today.
What would you like to do? I mean, you've talked about doing a cape line.
Mm-hmm.
Once that's completed, what would you love to do in the way of just your next phase of design?
My next phase of design. So actually, I design bridal headpieces.
Oh.
When I got married, like we talked about the locks, my hair was shaved on the sides and I just had locks on the top. And everything I didn't see anything I liked as a headpiece, so I created it. Fortunately for me, I had women at my wedding that worked at Essence, so it was featured, and I've been a part of this bridal industry for a minute. I actually would like to do some bridal capes, some evening capes, some red carpet looks that combine my knowledge of headpieces and capes. And I'm also embarking on some accessories for the guys. Something a little over the top. Ascots and draped ties. So it's just not a regular tie. And so that's what I'm dabbling in right now. I also had a line of tie-dye garments back in the day, and I've gotten back into doing some tie-dyeing and working with fabrics and developing, recycling items. Matter of fact, I have a mink coat in my closet right now that I want to cut up and use the mink in different places. A girlfriend gave me this mink coat because she was moving to a warmer climate, and my lifestyle, I don't wear it that much. So I'm like, well, I'd get better use out of it if I cut it up and put a collar on something or cuffs on something else, or enhanced some of the other garments that I'm doing. I ride the train and the bus a lot. Who's wearing a mink coat on the train and on the bus?
Not do that.
Yeah, it's like no, but a piece here and a piece there. Yeah. So
what have I not asked that you would love to respond to?
Wow, what have you not asked? Okay. So if I wasn't a fashion designer, what else would I do? I enjoy inspiration. I enjoy creating win-win situations. So I enjoy living life.
Mm.
You know, maybe I would run a beach restaurant.
Ooh.
You know,
Ooh.
where you
Ooh.
know you had I've served certain. We have certain special meals, certain days, and other days we're just closed. Like, you know, we're all at the beach.
Sherry, not even at least a section of the restaurant with a line of beachwear?
Probably cover ups.
Yes.
You know, cover down. Something,
Swimsuits.
yeah,
those who
something
forgot
that
to
you
bring
go
them.
into the night, you know, with the right jewelry and headgear. I fashion is kind of in my blood. Not kind of, it's in my blood.
Top three
So,
places where you would do it.
Jamaica, Paris. Oh wow, maybe South Africa.
Mm. Mm.
Maybe even Costa Rica might bump Paris out the way. But my days in Paris, I loved. So maybe Paris, Costa Rica, and South Africa.
Mm.
Yeah, I'll just take a vacation in Jamaica.
Don't say too much more. Someone might be listening and get to it before you do. Sherry, a pleasure.
It's mine too. What a joy.
Thank you.
And thank
very
you.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.